I think now we have to continue this conference with the legal aspects, and I would like to ask the Dr. Arta Rama-Hajrizi. She is a member of the Venice Commission and senior teaching assistant at the University of Pristina. Between 2012-2021, Rama-Hajrizi served as a judge at the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Kosovo from 2008-2012. Mrs. Rama-Hajrizi was Consul General at the Consulate General of Kosovo in New York. She is working on her PhD in constitutional law at the University of Pristina and University of Szeged. It means that she is our student also at the university, and I am very proud that she works with us, and I give the floor to you. Do you have also some? No.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Trocani, dear Professor Boyadiev, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be here today among this respected audience, and I'm honored for having the opportunity to give my thoughts and discuss on an important and urgent matter for all of us present here, but a matter which for the time being is not seen through similar lens by those who actually decide about our European destiny. During my presentation, which I titled The Western Balkans at the Crossroad, Is There Alternative to the EU Path?, I will try to argue that while EU integration should remain the objective of every Western Balkan country as the most natural and best solution, looking from today's developments and perspective, as well as the attitude of the EU towards this region, the reality is different. However, what is my conviction may not be reality, or it may be even worse, the reality. Our surrounding realities are not black and white. First, the Western Balkans historically has been a sort of a Gordian knot in our continent and also a battlefield of historical superpowers. This region was a crossroad of ideologies and also a clash of civilizations. As an outstanding producer of history, this part of the continent was portrayed in words of Winston Churchill as a region, I quote, that produces more history than it can consume. I end quote. Whether Churchill meant it for real or not, it's irrelevant, but the truth is in there. Just a couple of decades passed since the end of wars in this region, and today the peace seems more fragile than ever. The most recent Kosovo-Serbia border blockage due to Kosovo's decision to start applying reciprocity in implementation of a joint agreement of the usage of car plates, which sounds very technical, which agreement was mediated in Brussels, resulted in tensions among the two parties. A show of military maneuver was thrown by Serbia at the border, and the visit of the Russian ambassador there was understood as threat to stability and peace in the region and challenge to the demilitarization commitment. On the other hand, we see recently in Bosnia and Herzegovina daily challenges to the very constitutional order of the country, while in Montenegro the religious disagreements are only the superficial layer of a much profound political relations involving interests of more than one country, including superpowers, as Professor mentioned, Russia, China, and even Turkey. The nations of the Western Balkans have spent centuries' time dealing with the ghosts of the past. My fear is that such ghosts are still hanging around in search of opportunity to plant their seeds. Is this possible? Of course, very much possible. Is it avoidable? For sure it is, but it requires brave leadership, national and European one, grounded on trust, vision, and shared responsibility. Moreover, there must be a vision of the same gravity and power that led the founding fathers towards the European dream. A vision that overcomes the manageable hurdles and focuses on the bigger picture of Europe that we all want, a united, free, prosperous, and secure. There must be unquestionable trust in basic values we all share and trust in the future we envisage for ourselves and for our children. To achieve this, responsible actions are needed urgently. EU shall obey and stick to its promises, while Western Balkans countries shall fulfill their commitments. This is the rule, but it's obvious that it's not functioning. And such inconsistency of the EU endangers all the principles and commitments I just referred above. I shall underline in this regard one example. EU Commission years ago assigned to Kosovo a set of 93 criteria, called technical ones, to be fulfilled cumulatively as a precondition for the visa liberalization. The Commission conveyed in dozens of occasions, including annual progress report, that the visa liberalization process is a technical one, and the final judgment on whether Kosovo citizens will be able to travel free visa to EU or not depends on the capacity of Kosovo to meet these criteria. Well, Kosovo fulfilled each of the criteria as confirmed by the EU bodies, including the most atypical criterion ever imposed on any other applicant country, which was ratification of the border demarcation agreement with one of the neighboring countries, which Kosovo did, while at the same time most of the borders among the nations in this region are yet to undergo demarcation. It has been 4 years since the Commission concluded that Kosovo has fulfilled all the required assignments. 4 years. And for years now, the EU Parliament continues to recommend to EU Council to liberalize visa for Kosovo. And it has been years that the Council is still reluctant to recognize the achievements and grant visa liberalization to the only remaining European country that cannot travel visa-free because of the lack of the political will to do so. The problem here is many-sided. In the eyes of the Kosovo people, the credibility of EU is vanishing. The trust in local political leadership is diminishing. And finally, the process of fulfilling the criteria designed to be technical and non-political turned out to be pure political and non-technical, as it was always claimed. This is not how EU institutions should work, because this methodology will not advance the vision of the founding fathers. On the contrary, such approach will force the boat to seek other destinations in order to survive. I personally hope the last will never be the case. The Western Balkan countries are becoming aware of their uncertain prospect, and we noticed recently that they tend to go back to what they know the best, blaming each other for their own stagnation, utilize nationalistic approach, rather than working on difficult changes needed for reaching something that seems to them unreachable due to EU lack of clear and tangible integration strategy. Apparently, the process of EU enlargement towards Western Balkan is stagnation, and there is a vivid objection to the enlargement on the side of many European countries right now. Perhaps this is due to ongoing discussion on EU internal and structural reforms, due to migration crisis, due to hardships encountering among EU central institutions and respective members, and so on. All these and other reasons are of serious matter and require profound consideration and solution. But I think none of them shall be more determinant to the EU's future than setting a clear perspective for the Western Balkans countries. The Western Balkans needs EU as much as EU needs Western Balkans. There will never be safety or security if in the EU if the Western Balkans remains a black hole of the continent. The peace we are enjoying in the last 2 decades will not be defensible if foreign hands will roll the mixer of the Western Balkans politics. This picture is far from what EU expects from the Western Balkan countries. Nevertheless, in the context of my discussion today, I want to reiterate that divided EU, strong Russian, Chinese, and also Turkish presence who claim shares in the region has unfortunately created a momentum that could not only endanger the progress so far, but also do damage to the countries which did not assign or even think for such adventures. The interest of Russia and China to strengthen their position as dominating international presence in Serbia and Montenegro need not much arguments, as they inflict constant pressure in their internal politics, encouraging downturn towards EU path or completely unbending it. On the other hand, in the last decade, Turkey has clearly expressed its interests in reviewing its presence in the Western Balkans over its formerly controlled territories by offering investments and recalling for religious and cultural ties. And let's not ignore China's strategy over Western Balkans in the past 2 decades, which through different projects and investments has larger aspirations than the region. It covers EU and goes beyond. Just last week, NATO Secretary General Mr. Stoltenberg acknowledged the importance of stability in the Western Balkans and expressed his worry that recently, I quote, some external factors are acting with purpose of aggravating the process achieved in the region, particularly in Bosnia and Kosovo, I end quote. The Western Balkans countries may easily slip in the slope of the manufactured troubles and conflicts because of the fragility of their democracies, because of the weak economies, vague perspectives, but mainly due to reluctance of the EU to take regional concerns seriously and act immediately. It's also time for the EU to make it clear to all aspiring countries that any foul play will be met with open and loud criticism and condemnation. Otherwise, if it continues to maintain the balanced language, that will only encourage them to flirt further with other allies. I do not imply that EU should take over the burden of responsibility and carry the Western Balkans over its shoulders. But EU should keep us by hand and lead us in the enthralling path of the European dream. Otherwise, I fear others will do so, as they have already made this clear by all means. Such a reality would permanently kill the European dream, and a long period of instability, conflicts, and disintegration may assume EU and Western Balkans. The Republic of Kosovo, despite the current unfair and unequal treatment by the EU, is still stubborn in its commitments that there is no alternative, nor considers any other directions besides the EU path. The time has come for NATO and EU to work together and take actions to protect the progress that was achieved so far. The seriousness of the present danger that no one is talking in the EU is also noticed in the recent statement of British Prime Minister, who just said last week, I quote, "The region is experiencing the biggest threat to stability and security in over 2 decades, I end quote. In the light of such developments, I will recall a professor who just said UK last week appointed Sir Stuart Peach, a military figure, as special envoy to Western Balkans, following the steps of Washington, which appointed Mr. Escobar also as a special envoy for the region. Joint efforts and coordination of the EU Special Envoy, Mr. Lajčák, these appointees and their governments is the only way for Kosovo and Serbia to sign the final agreement on mutual recognition and commit to constructive neighborly relations. And this bringing the closure to this saga and thus making EU path a tangible and reachable target. Therefore, let me conclude by saying that it's time for EU to act, not to react. And yes, EU leaders confirm continuously that the future of the Balkans is within the European Union, but comforting language is no longer sufficient to continue asking for major reforms in the name of what seems to us literally a dream. I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to any comments and discussions. Thank you.